Dr. Liz Lipski is a well-known nutrition professional who has helped thousands of people reverse chronic disease and get off medications. She has a PhD in clinical nutrition as well as many other credentials. She is also the author of several books. In fact, if you don't mind, let me look over here on my computer and read some of her credentials. In addition to her PhD in clinical nutrition, she is a certified clinical nutritionist. She is a certified nutrition specialist, certified in holistic nutrition. She's the author of Digestive Wellness, Digestion Connection, Digestive Wellness for Children, and Leaky Gut Syndrome. And in addition to that, if that's not enough for you, she is the Academic Director of Nutrition and Integrative Health Programs at Maryland University of Integrative Health. She is also the founder of Innovative Healing Incorporated, the director of the Innovative Healing Mentoring Program, and a faculty member at the Institute for Functional Medicine. And her credentials go on and on and on. Wouldn't it be a privilege to live in a state where this woman practices nutrition, where she could help you restore health to your body? Well, in 2013, she was actually banned from practicing nutrition in the state of North Carolina. And depending on the way the laws are currently in your state, people like Dr. Liz Lipski may not be able to practice where you live. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the difference between dietitians and nutritionists and the reason why somebody like Dr. Liz Lipski may be banned from practice in the state where you live. Coming up on Food Facts Revealed. Hi everybody, I'm Laura Carteret, Master of Science in Human Nutrition and creator and host of Food Facts Revealed. Thanks for watching another video here. Before I talk more about Dr. Liz Lipski, let's just dive right into the difference between dietitians and nutritionists, because there is a lot of confusion about this. People ask me this question rather frequently, and most people think dietitians are the ultimate nutrition professional. Now, before I say anything else, let me tell you something. Dietitians are highly educated and skilled at what they do. They are very knowledgeable people. But there is a difference between a dietitian and the training like someone that myself has when it comes to nutrition. So what is that difference? Well, first and foremost, primarily dietitians are trained to work in institutions like hospitals, nursing homes, but primarily hospitals. Now, people tell me all the time, how come you don't get a job in the hospital? Well, I'm not qualified for almost all hospital jobs because hospitals hire dietitians. I am not a dietitian. Even with a master's degree in human nutrition, I am not qualified to sit for the exam that would give me accreditation to be a dietitian. Why? Because I don't have a bachelor's degree in dietetics. Now, although you don't need a bachelor's degree in dietetics to complete a program like I completed, our knowledge from the master's level is more than adequate to practice clinical nutrition. It's what we're trained to do. So what is the difference? Well, dietitians learn, they do learn nutrition. They do not learn as much of the biochemistry that we learn, but they do learn about things like tube feeding, so enteral feeding that might be needed in a hospital. If I had to come up with a formula for some patient that had to be fed by a tube, I would have no clue. I have no training in that. Dietitians also have courses in food science, and they also have training in food safety, more training in food safety and food management. So these people, when they get their bachelor's degree, they come out and not only are they equipped to practice as a dietitian in a hospital after they do their internship that's required to become a dietitian, but they also are eligible or qualified to become supervisors of cafeterias in hospitals, maybe in the school systems, and advise on food safety, food handling, food preparation. So they learn a lot more in that area than someone like myself. My program as a nutritionist, what we like to consider a nutritionist rather than a dietitian, focuses on the functioning of the body as a whole, a group of systems that influence each other. So we look at the metabolic systems of the body, whether that is the metabolism that's required to produce neurotransmitters, the metabolism required to detoxify the body, the metabolism required to break down and rebuild bone, to produce your blood cells, whatever it might be, your energy metabolism, all kinds of things, okay? So you have all the systems in the body that are based on biochemical reactions. And those reactions depend on the vitamins and minerals that you eat. So basically, all this metabolism that goes on constantly, every single second while you're living and breathing, depends on nutrients. So this is how nutrition is highly tied in to your medical and health condition. Because once those nutrients start being depleted or in low quantities, then there is inevitably some type of disruption in metabolism. And we are trained to identify those areas of the metabolism that may be breaking down and how they affect your health. Now, we do this not just by what you eat and what you feel like. We have functional medical laboratory tests. So again, dietitians are not trained to interpret functional medical laboratory tests. We can use different laboratory tests that medical doctors do not use to assess the functioning of your metabolism and your internal body. This is something that is unique to a master's degree in nutrition and other alternative health categories, perhaps like naturopathic doctors and whatnot. And of course, functional medical practitioners get very deep into not just functional medical laboratories and interpreting them, but the actual practice of functional medicine. Now, dietitians, although someone like myself, if I were in clinical practice, we don't diagnose disease like doctors. We don't cure diseases like doctors. This is illegal for us to make any of these claims. We simply assess your current situation and current nutritional status and go from there and base recommendations on what we see. But again, we can use laboratory tests to do this. Now, a dietitian, they're not going to really do much assessment of anything except maybe your current diet, because they have the doctor's diagnosis. Another big difference between the dietitians and someone like myself, or someone trained like myself, we don't use a cookie cutter approach. It's not one diet for everyone. So if a diabetic goes to see a nutritionist, the nutritionist with an advanced education is not going to make the same recommendations for every single diabetic patient. They're not going to make the same recommendation for every single heart patient, like person who had a heart attack and maybe had a stent put in, where the dietitian does. So the dietitian in the hospital basically has the dietary recommendations already cut out and set forth for each individual condition, where we are looking at individual biomarkers and maybe genetic dispositions that can influence health. In some cases, people have diseases where they may not even be advised to go talk to a dietitian because the medical industry as it currently exists doesn't feel like nutrition is going to influence their state of health. For example, I was talking just the other day with somebody who has a family member with chronic pancreatitis. Now, the doctor's solution for this is, okay, we diagnosed you with chronic pancreatitis, and when it flares up, here's your medication, take it. There's absolutely no nutrition evaluation. If a patient like that, or I should say a client like that, came to me and became one of my clients, there would be a very thorough initial evaluation as well as mandatory laboratory tests, because I would have to find out about their gut health, what is going on with the gut microbiota, is there any imbalance in there, what about absorption and digestion issues. Surely with chronic pancreatitis, this is going to affect the digestive enzymes, because that is one of the major functions of the pancreas, as we know, as well as producing insulin. So there's all kinds of things I could look at. I could look at chronic inflammation, markers that we can take, maybe a urine test or a blood test that will show us how much inflammation is going on in the body, as well as potential, oxidative stress, levels of oxidative stress, all stuff the medical industry is not going to do for somebody like that. It's basically, when it flares up, take this medication when it happens, and take your digestive enzymes maybe. So it's a totally different approach and a more functional approach to basically medical conditions and helping people get to the underlying cause and healing medical conditions. This is what someone like myself and others with similar and higher education have been trained to do. Now, again, this is not to take away the importance of a dietitian in the hospital and nursing home settings. This is something that, and some dietitians choose to get master's degrees and PhDs also. Sometimes they start their own practice because they do not like the constraints of the institution. And this is what happens. It's not really that the dietitian cannot provide the nutrition advice that they want. It's that the institution won't let them in some cases. So within the scope of practice in the hospital, they are trained on what to recommend and how to present dietary recommendations to patients in hospitals. So it does confine them to this cookie cutter approach. Herein lies a major problem with the nutrition profession, but it's not the dietitian's fault. It's really a political issue. And this is where you get into the politics of nutrition. Because what happened was we developed this organization, the American Dietetics Association. They recently changed their name about 3 years ago to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And now they're calling Registered Dietitians, Registered Dietitian Nutritionists, okay? People like myself who have the background and education to pursue the Certified Nutrition Specialist certification, we like to call ourselves nutritionists, and the other people in the institutions dietitians, so that people know there is a difference. It's dangerous when people don't understand the difference, because you really have no clue then who to seek out for additional healthcare options if you so choose to pursue alternate healthcare solutions. Now, let's look more into the politics of this by going back to Dr. Liz Lipski. In 2013, the state of North Carolina banned her. She had a successful nutrition practice in their state. She was already a doctor. She had her PhD in clinical nutrition. Yet they deemed that she was practicing illegally. Now, North Carolina has since changed their laws. They no longer deny people like Dr. Liz Lipski practice within their state, but they did. Why? Because the American Dietetics Association during the years lobbied state legislators and convinced them to make it illegal to practice nutrition in states unless you were a registered dietitian. And the state legislators bought into it, never realizing that there were other types of education people could get that made them more than competent to practice medical nutrition therapy, but they weren't dietitians. Like Dr. Liz Lipski. She does not have a bachelor's degree in dietetics. And although you can get advanced education in dietetics, you don't need to be a dietitian. So basically, if you don't have a bachelor's degree in dietetics, you cannot be a registered dietitian no matter how much nutrition education you have. So, because there is that difference too, don't forget, like tube feedings and things like that, and different things that encompass, like I said, food preparation and safety. So, but here's the thing. When the American Dietetics Association did all this lobbying, what we really questioned was, how much did the food industry influence their motives? Because the organization, which is now, like I said, called the Academy for Nutrition and Dietetics, okay, the AND for short now, the AND, okay, has been funded by the food industry. And herein lies a big puzzle piece of the big picture I'm always talking about, right? How is McDonald's and Coca-Cola giving the American or the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics funding? You know, is this even moral to accept money from such unhealthy food organization, or food corporations, I should say. They're corporations, right? But this is what happened. And this is one of the reasons why a dietitian for maybe a diabetic patient will be out there still recommending they eat artificial sweeteners. Well, if you want to drink soda, just start drinking diet soda, right? Someone like myself would never recommend that. Why? It's a processed food. You hear me all the time saying, eat whole foods, right? And here's the thing. There's no one diet that fits everybody. But when you don't know anything about a person, the best advice you can give them, and I tell people this when they ask me, what's one thing you would tell me if you could? One piece of nutritional advice, what would it be if you only had one to give me? That's what it is. Stop eating processed food. There is no medical condition, and I mean none, that is going to benefit from eating processed food or drinking processed food beverages, okay? So there's a lot of dietary advice that is different. I have a friend who had a heart attack and I know was told to basically eat a low-fat diet without any distinction between the types of fat that are out there. Why? Because he told me he was eating salads, dry salads with just vinegar. And I told him, why are you eating salads with only vinegar? For crying out loud, put some extra virgin olive oil on those salads. It's one of the most heart healthiest foods we know of, honestly. The Mediterranean diet, okay, in one of the most famous nutrition studies ever done, it was done on people who already had a cardiovascular event, like a heart attack or a stroke, okay, all of the subjects, and there were a lot of subjects. They put them on the Mediterranean diet and had exceptional results when they compared them to people who just continued eating their normal diet. It's a whole foods diet, and they do eat fish and some, which provides some fat, but 60 to 70% of their fat calories comes from extra virgin olive oil. And these are some of the most heart healthiest people in the world. So there's a lot of really not so great nutrition information coming out of established institutions, and a lot of it is from the political landscape. The food industry is going through extraordinary lengths to make sure the government and established institutions are continuing to promote the consumption and use of processed foods within the diet, keeping this whole idea that processed foods can be healthy. I was in a hospital with a friend who had a serious condition last year, and they were feeding him Ensure. Ensure, you know, you've seen it, right? It's like that pudding that they put a bunch of vitamins and minerals in. I mean, I almost died. I could not believe the diet they were feeding this guy. I mean, I really wanted to cry every time I left. I was like, what is going on in the hospitals? What kind of people? This is a completely processed food, fortified with vitamins and minerals, and loaded with artificial sweeteners. The last thing anybody needs for your gut microbiome, especially if you are trying to recover from a hemorrhagic stroke. I mean, who in their right mind would feed someone macaroni and cheese and Ensure to somebody who just had a hemorrhagic stroke? I don't know, but I can assure you, it wouldn't be me if it was my choice. But the hospitals have certain guidelines that they are under great pressure to follow, and it's because of money and politics. Unfortunate as it is, this is the truth, people. Now, like I said, Dr. Liz Lipski today could, if she moved back, I doubt she's going to go back to North Carolina. Why would she, right? But she's doing fine in Maryland. But they've changed their laws. And the laws are very confusing. Like in my home state of, I live in Virginia now, but Rhode Island is where I'm originally from. Nobody can practice nutrition, medical therapy unless you're a registered dietitian. The laws can be very confusing. So for example, if I tell people in these videos, check your state for certified nutrition specialist, right? CNS, a certified nutrition specialist. These people have master's degrees in nutrition like myself, and they're educated in a functional nutrition approach, right? Well, some states, you're not going to find any. Why? Because they can't practice nutrition therapy. Like my home state, Rhode Island, where I'm originally from, I live in Virginia now, but Rhode Island, It's against the law for anyone to practice nutrition therapy but registered dietitians, because they haven't changed the laws yet. We're advocating to have these laws changed. And then in other states like mine, anyone can practice nutrition counseling. You just can't call yourself a nutritionist or a registered dietitian or dietitian unless you have the credential of dietitian, which requires the education plus an internship, okay, with another dietitian. And for myself to be a certified nutrition specialist, it requires a master's degree and 1,000 hours working with another clinical nutritionist. So there is for these certifications, there are pretty stringent requirements. So in my state, I can still practice nutrition care though. So, but I just can't call myself a nutritionist until I get that certification. I can call myself a nutrition counselor because anyone can practice nutrition counseling or nutrition care. It's so strange. I mean, it's so confusing. And then North Carolina, what they did, they also made it so anyone can practice nutrition counseling, but not anyone can practice medical nutrition therapy. So you have, but now they made it so that even if you're not a dietitian, you can get state licensure, state recognition. Some states don't have any licensing. It's all so confusing. And then people online, when you look up dietitian versus nutritionist, a lot of them are telling you, you know, dietitians have a bachelor's degree and they go through a rigorous internship, and plus they have to pass an exam. That's all true. But and then in the next breath they'll say a nutritionist is basically anybody, including a personal trainer. That's only true in certain states. Certain states let anyone call themselves a nutritionist, but not everyone can call themselves a dietitian. It's a lot of confusion. It shouldn't be this way, because what has happened, if you can't see it already, is that people are very confused about what a nutritionist is, and they give no weight to the connection between nutrition and medical conditions because of this just chaos that has been created. And it's been created because of money and politics. It's just absolutely a shame that we live in this society. In fact, there is a woman, there's a great nutrition practice, very modern nutrition practice here in Norfolk, Virginia, where I live, which is owned by a gentleman. He's a doctor of chiropractic medicine. He got out of chiropractic medicine years ago, 20 years ago, and decided to open up a nutrition practice. He has a master's degree in human nutrition from the University of Bridgeport, the same program I graduated from. It's a very prestigious nutrition program. And he knows very well what he's doing. He has a very successful practice. Yet there was a review I saw on him from somebody who said he's not even a dietitian. He's a chiropractor and he has no nutrition education. That's not true. He has a master's degree in human nutrition from the University of Bridgeport. Okay, he knows what he's doing. And the woman said, you know, I just wanted a meal plan, not supplements and further testing. Okay, so apparently she came to him with her medical condition, and after the initial evaluation, he decided, you know, what we want to do is start you on these supplements. Most people need some type of nutritional supplements. That's what we use. It doesn't mean you have to take them forever. He probably wanted testing to know what she should be eating and to see where you are. See, people we talk about how the current healthcare system is a sick care system. And even I heard a nurse practitioner tell me this. She said even people in hospitals now and in the medical profession are starting to call our healthcare system sick care. Why? Because we wait until people get sick and then we treat them. That's what we do. It's sick care. Get sick and then we'll tell you what to do. There's no preventative angle. There's nobody preaching about how to prevent disease, right? Except people like myself. You know, nutrition is a huge tool that you can use for disease prevention. And exercise, of course, you know, different lifestyle things, but nutrition is major, major, major. So we buy into this. It's almost like we don't believe that there's another way. We don't believe in the current system, but then when we find out what we have to pay for alternative care in some states where we think it's all just a scam, when it's not. See, unfortunately, the way the laws are written, it also keeps people like myself, at least in my state, from taking insurance. That is, until I'm state recognized. So if I become a certified nutrition specialist in the future, then I can take insurance. So see that, and that's how it is too. There's a lot of states where anyone can practice nutrition care, but you can't take like Medicare for diabetic patients or other patients that are eligible to get nutrition counseling paid for unless you have a state license. But some states won't let you get a license unless you're a dietitian. It's not really right, and we're fighting very, very hard to change it. And there's lots of people advocating out there, the political part of it. And if you want to get involved, because you can get involved, you can go to www.nutritionadvocacy.org. I'll put this down in the notes too of the video. But this is where you can go and you can find out what the current laws are in your state. If you want to help change them, they can help you identify your state legislators. So basically your House of Representatives and senators that represent your state, you can write them letters. And what do we want? Well, we want licensure. We want nutrition professionals to have to go through some rigorous training. We don't want just anybody to be able to be a nutritionist or a dietitian. That wouldn't be right. We want people to recognize that this is a science-based practice that can really and honestly, truly help them restore or maintain their health. But we want both a nutrition education as well as a dietetics education to be recognized, an adequate nutrition education, not just someone who took 2 courses of nutrition, of course. We want degrees, master's degrees, PhDs in nutrition to be recognized for what they are and the value that they can provide. Otherwise, you are literally depriving thousands of people in certain states access to adequate healthcare solutions, competent and legitimate healthcare solutions. That could be getting them off medications. That's what happens when you have laws like North Carolina used to have. How many people were deprived of working with Dr. Liz Lipski because of the way the laws were? Hundreds. By now, over the years, maybe thousands. Is this fair? Is this really fair to any state population or the entire country population of the entire United States, to deny them access to legitimate, competent, alternative solutions to their health? Of course it isn't. And so this is why we want the recognition that we deserve. The dietetics, the dietitians, as well as the nutritionists. We are on a level that goes beyond just things like personal trainers and health coaches, and nothing against those people. Those people change lives every day. Honestly, I know people who just attending personal training literally change their life. Health coaches, I've met health coaches that are so successful. I mean, it's amazing what they can do for their clients. But as far as medical nutrition therapy, they're not going to practice that. That's outside the scope of their practice. Not that they can't do amazing things without having to practice medical nutrition therapy. A lot of times you can. Not everybody needs MNT. So, but that's basically the gist of it. So I hope this helped many of you see a little bit more of the big picture and what's actually going on out there. So until next time, love yourself enough to eat whole foods. Eat real food.